actually did engage quite nicely.
Yeah, they were lovely.
So this is the recording for Common Time in week 9. And we just want to go through some comments about reading and understanding your feedback from your assignments, but also sort of that aspect that you're nearly there at the end, and just how you're going. And so the main thing to think about when you're looking at your feedback is really recognizing where it actually is. And so you'll have some in your rubrics and some actually as comments within your essay. And a lot of times comments relate to students not demonstrating understanding of what they're writing. And when you read that, you go, but I did know what I was writing. But remember, the marker can only read what you have written. And if you're using a lot of words that are actually from the article you're reading, and not making your own clear sentences with simple words, then it's hard for the marker to actually recognize what are you actually demonstrating as your understanding. Kathy, do you want to sort of come in on this about sort of the importance of understanding your feedback?
I'd love to. Thank you, Elizabeth. So when you are receiving your essay back in the next couple of weeks, it might be that you have an initial emotional response straight up to some of the comments or perhaps your mark overall. But I just wanted to share with you that I personally, I think it took me until about halfway through second year before I worked out that I wasn't actually writing my essays aligned with the marking criteria. And I actually became better and better, or started receiving high marks because I was actually tailoring my answers to the marking criteria rather than writing these amazing essays that were actually nothing to do with the marking criteria. Now, I'm not suggesting that you guys are doing that, but I do hope that when you're looking at your feedback, please open up that marking criteria and really have a look at those comments, because your marker is making comments about how those little sections of or the paragraphs of your essay have actually met that marking criteria, or to the degree that has met it. So I know we start off with an emotional response, but I'm just asking you to look at it in a little bit more, not cold-hearted, but in a more calm manner, to see what can I learn from this feedback, because the most important thing is to take it forward to improve your assessment items for the future.
Because that underlying thing that we're actually providing this feedback and your education, so you become a really great RN. And we know that when you're looking at charts and where the nurses have written up the notes, they're very concise. Well, they should be very concise and clear, with definite points, so that anyone else reading it can really quickly see, okay, what has this RN done today? What has been achieved? What was evaluated? And what needs to be done? And so that's sort of what we're expecting as in your essay writing. And the main thing is sort of when this, to demonstrate understanding, is to really think about, do you actually understand what you're writing? And this may mean to actually then go over some other articles, to read your textbooks, to go back to the modules within the course, to actually go, oh, hang on a minute, I didn't really understand what the difference between qualitative and quantitative research was, or I didn't understand what reliability it was. So then if you're making a comment in the assignment, it becomes very easy for the marker to realize that you didn't actually understand, but you're more repeating. And so you can see the comment here that this marker has highlighted, that this bias-free review, and so they've listed all the different ways, different types of research, but they haven't really demonstrated their understanding. They're more just demonstrated that they are able to summarize and put what that researcher had written into their assignment. And the other, the comment from Anu that, biofilm. So this is again, this lack of understanding about what the actual researcher that wrote the article was talking about. And I think even in your clinical assignments, Kathy, it's that ability to actually not just repeat information, but provide that depth of understanding.
Yes, and one other point to add to that is that sometimes I find that students start to list And that's when you know that you haven't gone in enough depth. So reading through many of the essays that I have, I've just found that students have started to list. So as soon as you go temperature, common, pulse rate, common, respiratory, comma, as soon as you've got commas in there, maybe you haven't selected one to go in depth. And so that would be my feedback, and going forward for future essays too, to pick out one and go in more depth with one, rather than as soon as you start to see yourself list, you know you're probably not going in enough depth. Would that reflect for other people's essays there, do you think?
Yes, I would definitely agree, Kathy. And when you get to the third year space, that's something that you really need to you need to have worked on quite a bit in the second year space, because then we're looking for critical analysis and synthesis. So
Yeah.
you need to work on not just listing, as Kathy said, because that's more of a first year, maybe moving on in second trimester to more describing and discussing. So it's very important, and it does show your depth of understanding if you can synthesize your information well rather than list.
And one of the things with that is about the types of words that you use. So it's important to sort of make sure that you're not using big words to sort of think that you're demonstrating, your academic skills, but use small, simple words that really show that you understand what's happening. And, like this is an example where, the student had written preliminary findings demonstrate, but, what does metabolic indicators mean? And I think this was really sort of clear. It actually highlighted that the student didn't really know what, this article was talking about. And what they, could have done is the sort of little sentences above, which is slightly more sentences, but then I brought in some other ideas, which really demonstrated that there was a depth of understanding about what this article was saying, which was about we need to educate patients so that they understand about the diet, so they actually change the diet. And so rather than encouraging them to use a diabetic diet, you encourage them to modify what they're already eating.
That does take a little bit more time to craft that answer though, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Which leads us then to this next point about proofreading, because what you should be doing, and this is that planning time. So when you're looking at your assignment, the first step is to read over what we've asked for and why, and then go back to the course and sort of look at that. What is this course about, and so what are they wanting me to demonstrate? And then look at the criteria. Okay, so if this is what they're asking, this is what it's being marked by, and often we'll provide a word count. So when you may start the process, it's about then, okay, well, this is my points. And then looking, does that actually match the criteria? And then start to write. But then as you're writing, proofreading is a really a vital point for getting good marks, because this removes any simple errors, grammar, punctuation. It also removes when you've been repetitive in a where you might have repeated the same point different ways across the assignment, which doesn't really matter, except if you're wanting word count and marks, it does, because marks relate to points, not the way you've presented a point. And so once you've presented a point well, its mark is then allocated. If you then present that point again, you're not going to get another mark for it if you may have presented it a different way round. And this is particularly important, in assignments, but also in exams where you are, writing and you've got sort of to write points in exams. Did you want to add to that, Kathy or Hilary?
That's fantastic. It's very good advice, Elizabeth. The other thing that I wanted to say is, so one of the most common is when you'll have one word at the end of a at the end of one, right, justified, and then you'll put it again. So you'll go and you won't notice that. So sometimes printing out your essay will help. And then the other thing that I do too, and I'm just thinking about word count, is I look for my joining words. So I'm a similarly kind of person. For some reason, or in this way. You know, my brother, because he's been a proofreader for me, he'll often say, oh, here we go, in this way. And so, but for some reason that seems to start off a sentence for me, or it starts off a thought for me. So it's better than me just looking at a blank screen to write in this way. It gets me writing. So what do I do when I'm editing? And as Elizabeth said, this takes time. I search for similarly or in this way to see if I can take those out. So yeah, so if you're writing the essay though, at a 2 a.m. kind of essay, that's the things that you lose. And often you'll lose marks for clarity and also word choice and also repetitiveness if you haven't taken time to edit well. Hilary?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was the students who do very, very well set about a week before submission to actually edit their work and proofread their work, and they go through it with a fine tooth comb. So they search for their joining words. For me, Kathy, it was always using whereby.
Whereby?
Yeah, I don't know why.
She's a
So,
whereby.
Yeah, get rid of the wherebys, get rid of, is there too many therefores and howevers and additionally, and you get rid of those and you will save yourself so many words. It will be surprising. So a lot of my good students start off with, if there's a word limit of 1,500, they might finish their assignment and it might be 1,800 words, but they will spend a good 5 days reducing that word count. And when they do that, they really fix the structure of their essay, they fix all of the grammatical errors that they might have made, and they're very harsh on themselves. They usually get a friend or a family member to read through the essay, or they read it out loud to their friend and their family, and they can pick up their errors as they go through. So I think proofreading is key to getting extra marks, definitely.
Yeah. And you know, the joining words, mine was which, I would say,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
so I'd sort of say I'm just doing a witch hunt to get rid of them all.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
But reading aloud is really important, you know, because if you can't read your work without, you know, actually adding the punctuation, it means that it's not written well. And so if you've got a sentence that's like 3 or 4 lines long, it is far too long. It'll have far too many points, and you'll you know, it's not that grammar is a big amount of marks, but it's not really an area that you want to lose marks in. You know, it's something that if you get that right, it will make the whole assignment read better, which will make then the marker stay happy, and the marks stay higher. The front page was an issue, and sort of, we had this comment that there is examples of front pages. Make sure you get this right. So using student name, essay title, word count in bold. Make sure you've got your student name and number. Make sure you've got the page numbers. So these are all little details, but they make the sort of easier on the marker, and also the spacing. So make sure you've got the spacing correct for your assignment. Now, all of those rules are in our writing and reading page, and Kathy also had another a page which we'll put up, and this is in the Nurses Connect, isn't it, Kathy?
Yeah, it's in the Nurses Connect. It's an exemplar at the end of the Griffith Health Writing and Referencing Guide. So I suggest printing that out, and any time that your essay doesn't look like that, you need to make it look like that, please.
Yes, because that's just simple marks. And referencing, so it is a skill, referencing, and you know, if you can use EndNote, remembering the skill of referencing is only as good as your checking. Every time you reference, you need to check. I had some international students who got confused of first name and last name. So making sure that you actually go back to the online article and look at how they've referenced their article, so you know which is the first name and the last name, and making sure that you've got the page numbers. Sometimes when you download the article, or when you're given an article, it may not have the page numbers. If it's been uploaded as an online article first, and then it is published, and then it gets page numbers. So sometimes if you've got one that's very new, from 2023 or 2022, it may not have the page numbers in there, but they may then be present at a later date. So make sure you actually get the page numbers of your article.
And I think it's a good idea with the referencing as well. I learned this one from Janine, is to have a printout of the library guide to APA 7 in front of you. There's some good examples there to just keep you on track with finding your surnames and your first initial and the date of publication. It's a, because they are easy marks to lose, but they're easy marks to gain, aren't they?
Yep.
If you get them, if you get your referencing right.
And web pages and things like that. So you get it right. And we're being aware that we do actually look and check off these references are in text. These are in the list. So that if you, you need to do that yourself. That's part of that, looking and at your draft, that you actually go through and go, right, I've got all these references in text and they're definitely all in my list. Making sure that web pages are coming up correctly, that you haven't got all of that online sort of HTML information on your reference list as well. And also being aware of that you've actually got enough journal articles. Sometimes in a article, an essay, there's often an opportunity to use a range of web pages, but that will actually, there'll often be a comment in the criteria that you need to use academic references, and that means they need to be journal articles that are current. If you use one that's maybe seminal research and so it's older, need to actually make that comment as you're presenting it, that Jones, long-standing researcher in this area, made this comment. So it highlights that this is why you're using this older reference. And so as you're preparing, the first thing is to read over the actual what this assignment is about, making sure you really know the aims of the assignment, going back to the course and the course profile to know what this course is about, so that really you're actually meeting what the outcomes and the aims of the assignment and the criteria, and then the steps by which the assignment is to be written. This is really important. A lot of students, Matt said in P&P, actually failed to add both concept map and written information together. They submitted one and then the other, but then only one got marked because they're only marking one paper. So that's, just remembering these, when we give details about an assignment, it's because that's how we want it submitted. Make sure you add the dates to your planner so you actually have time to go through and revisit your draft and reread it. And also allowing time, as you're coming up now to the assessment items at the end of trimester, that you've got time to study and revise, that it's not just something that you're going to just do the night before. That's not going to get you the mark that you want to achieve. And it's not about the marks. What the information that we give you in your degree is about being a safe practitioner at the end of this degree, that you don't want to just be an RN that's just passed, because that is the RN that actually is likely to make mistakes and not get good jobs. You want to be the RN that's got good marks all the way through, because that will be the RN that's giving safe quality care for good patient outcomes. Making sure that you talk to your convener if you're unsure about what you're actually expected in this assignment. Look at the team site. We've all got very active team sites to actually have information provided so you can go back over it. Look at the reading lists. That's what they're there for. In the course sites are reading lists where we'll have all the articles we expect you to be looking at to develop the work for your assignments. And if you're struggling, make sure you have that time to talk to your convener. And this was just a slide that we had with the students that were online about this, how are you going? So take time to reflect now about, okay, where am I at? Have I made some friends? And Kathy, do you want to add the comment about the importance of friends at university?
Oh, absolutely. So one of the indicators for success at university is that you've actually made connections and friends. And so I think it makes sense to me, because if people are, you know, talking about an essay or getting ready for an exam, just even that informal chat means that you're staying on track, and maybe you're even talking about content without even realizing it. So just something to think about there. Other things, if you haven't made a friend by the end of the year, reach out to your lecturers, because we also know how important it is to make some connections and get some buddies, some study buddies. And there might be some different methods at different campuses that we can have to actually put you in touch with peer mentors, or have the social events that we might know about that you just haven't heard about. So please don't think that you can't reach out to us, because we do know how important it is.
Yes, make sure you do.
And this is the international slide, which Hazel was unable to actually be with us today. But she just really wanted to sort of promote this idea of the opportunity for this international placement. I know it often when you look at it, you go, oh, it's so expensive. It's, you know, difficult. I have never traveled overseas, but it is such a supportive placement. You know, we have an excellent ratio of students to facilitators. We have translators and all the support in country. It is a great opportunity to sort of be able to have on your CV. And it's also, you know, you don't need to go with a friend. This is an opportunity that we really have activities to find a friend. And it's, you know, sometimes it's great actually to not have formed friends. That leaves you open to then develop new friendships, which are often really sustained because you're living together with this person, you know, with this group of people and the conveners for 3 weeks. One of the things that it is, you can have it as a HECS debt, so it just adds to your HECS debt, so it's not that expensive nowadays. And we really do encourage students to fundraise for their placement, and which is actually, you know, really quite nice way to give back to the community, because then you go with money that you fundraise from families, and you can buy shoes and toothbrushes for the villagers when you're over there. And I think Hillary is actually going to be one of the facilitators on this year's placements.
Yes, I will be. I'm not sure which block I'll be going on, but I will be, because I'm one of the conveners for 3804 with Hazel and Amanda. And we highly encourage you to apply or express your interest to come along with us to Vietnam. There are also funding opportunities for domestic students, and Hazel will be able to go over that with you in more detail. We had a session last week about it, Elizabeth, I think it was. So we can share the recording with anybody who's interested.
Yes, and it's such an opportunity as well.
It is. It really is, for your clinical skills and your communication. Very good.
And just last slide, just to remind you that we do have another session in week 11. And this is going to be really focusing on sort of tidying up the trimester, understanding feedback, working out how to sort of work out where you stand with your marks, so that if you're going into that exam, you know, right, I need to achieve this. How to answer the exam questions, and how to study for exam questions. So that's going to be in our online session in week 11. And really remember at this stage to keep your study and your life balanced by planning. So it's so important to make sure you actually have time to go for that walk on the beach if you live at the Gold Coast, or, you know, walk in the park, time to sort of read a book or watch some telly, and just time out to let your sort of body just readjust, particularly when you're in placements that can be so, you know, like they are great, but they also can be quite challenging, both emotionally and the time and the lack of sleep as you're going through the early and late shifts. So, you know, really think about what you can need to do. This is an opportunity to reach out to your course convener, or to us as Common Time conveners, or your peer mentors, to help you get a balance of study and life. Did you want to add anything in there, Hillary?
Yeah, that's right, Elizabeth. I mean, it's just very important. Everybody would be feeling very time poor at the moment and quite exhausted. So keeping that balance is very, very important. I agree with you've pointed out some very, very helpful tips there, Elizabeth.
And that's it. So thank you very much. And we'll look forward to seeing more students in week 11 session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.